Welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Friday, the 23rd of December. It's getting real, folks. Christmas is coming. Hope you got your letters into Santa Claus. My name is Rachel Parker. My pronouns are she and her. I am an Anglican priest, the rector or the priest responsible for Dayspring Ministries, which is a collaboration of three churches, St. Mary's Edgerton, St. Thomas Wainwright, and St. Saviour's in Vermilion. In the Anglican Church of Canada, the Diocese of Edmonton, which is located in sort of the southeast middle portion of Alberta in Canada. And before I go any further, I'd just like to say there will be a Christmas Eve post Gospel on the Go tomorrow night, or tomorrow sometime. There will be nothing on Sunday for Christmas Day. There will be Gospel on the Go for January the 1st. And I will be putting up something on New Year's Eve. But all of next week, Church at Home with Rachel is on hiatus. I'm taking a bit of a break, but I'll be back regularly planned, scheduled program on the Monday, the 2nd of January. 2023 is going quickly, isn't it? I came across this. A friend posted this on Facebook, and it was taken from the Westminster Abbey Carol Service. And apparently, Dame Kristin Scott Thomas DBE was read at His Majesty the King Charles III's suggestion, a poem called Refugee. I'd like to share this with you today. We think of him as safe beneath the steeple, or cozy in a crib beside the font, but he is with a million displaced people on the long road of weariness and want. For even as we sing our final carol, his family is up and on that road, fleeing the wrath of someone else's quarrel, glancing behind and shouldering their load. Whilst Herod rages still from his dark tower, Christ clings to Mary, fingers tightly curled. The lambs are slaughtered by the men of power, and death squads spread their curse across the world. But every Herod dies, and comes alone to stand before the Lamb upon the throne. Malcolm, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Guite, Guite, was born in 1957. What a powerful poem, Refugee. I think when it comes time for Christmas, we often think of the baby Jesus born in a stable. You know, kids often, when I tell the story at Christmas with kids, they often do the whole, oh, my, it would stink. It's been born in a stable with all the cows pooping and all that stuff. Absolutely. Parents don't usually like that part of the story. They like to gloss over that. Mary, meek and mild with her blue, beautiful dress on and the baby wrapped in swaddling clothes. I think swaddling means he's wrapped up. The clothes probably weren't all that clean. And he was in a manger. No matter what we talk about, he was in a feed trough for animals. Okay, so it's not quite as clean and tidy and antiseptic laden as we tend to imagine the story of Jesus being. The truth is, the story of Jesus begins there and quickly turns into something else. If you read the scripture and do some study, we talk about the shepherds coming and seeing the baby Jesus. Often our nativity sets that we buy in stores and set up in creches around the world, sometimes we even have live nativity scenes, show the wise men arriving and being there with the shepherds. Well, really, the wise men probably came to Jesus when he was about 2 years old. You see, they came on behest of the star. They were astronomers. They were people from the east, magi, not magicians, but men who were astronomers, men who were wise, people who looked beyond themselves to see what the world was telling them, what God might be telling them. They weren't Christians, and they were not likely Jewish either, but they were coming from afar. So places like India, the Middle East, other parts of the Middle East, where they came, but they saw a star born all of a sudden, and something called them to follow that star, which led them to where Jesus was. Chances are it wasn't Bethlehem. But when they got there, they stopped to ask Herod, we're coming, like any good person would do. We would not ever expect that King Charles would just pop into Canada without checking in with the Governor General or the Prime Minister to say, hey, I'm coming for a visit. Is it okay with you? Of course, the answer is always, of course it's okay. But it's a formality that we give. It's like bishops and priests. The Anglican Church of Canada has a primate. It is spelled Primate, but it is not pronounced primate. We all know what primates are. A primate is the first one, the head of. The primate, the primus, the first one. So the primate of Canada is Archbishop Linda Nichols. She is an Anglican priest. She was the diocesan bishop in my old Diocese of Huron. But when she was elected as the Archbishop of Canada, the primate for the Anglican Church of Canada, she became the first among equals, so to speak. But she doesn't just have the right to pop in. For instance, if she were to come to the Diocese of Edmonton, she would need to contact Bishop Stephen London, who is our bishop, and say, hello, this is my plan. I'd like to come. May I have your permission? And of course, the bishop would say, of course, welcome, Linda. We're glad to have you. Primate, welcome. What can we do for you? But there is a sense that their permission is asked. So the wise men would go to Herod and say, we are... Now, that's like what we call we three kings of Orient are. We three wise men, we three astronomers, we three people who are studying the stars are here, and the star has led us to your kingdom, and we are searching for the prophecy, the child that was born and this star represents and indicates for us. And Herod's like, okay, yeah, no, go ahead, go find and follow that star. And as soon as they're out of earshot, Herod's like, no, this is not good, because Herod was a little bit nervous about his stake, his hold on the kingdom. And here were these people from afar who'd come all this way on foot or by camel. They didn't have, super 747s. They didn't have bullet trains. They made this long, arduous trek to come to a place they'd never been because they saw a star. So Herod he was nervous. Something's going on here. And so the three men, these three astronomers, went and they found Joseph and Mary, and it was probably the toddler Jesus, and they worshipped him, and they brought him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And those each have specific meanings that I might get into at Epiphany, January the 6th, when we get there. Which is the arrival of the wise men. So Christmas, by the way, Christmas season, the 12 days of Christmas are Christmas Day through Epiphany. That's the 12 days of Christmas. But when they get there, they're warned in a dream not to go back and tell Herod. So they leave by a different route, because Herod has started an evil plan in place. Herod has determined that he is going to eliminate his competitor. We see a lot of that around the world lately, don't we? He's going to annihilate his competitor. And so on the 26th of December, we celebrate... No, sorry, it's the 11th of January. We celebrate the Feast of the Holy Innocents, when we recognize that Herod went through and killed all the children, at least the male children, under the age of 2. And so lambs are slaughtered by the men of power, and death squads spread their curse across the world. You see, when the wise men, or these astronomers, were warned in a dream not to go back and tell Herod, Joseph and Mary were given the message that they needed to escape as well, and they went to Egypt. Quite often in our world, in Canada as well as the United States and other places in the world, when we talk about refugees, we talk about them as if there's something wrong with them, that they are fleeing because, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea to spend all our money to walk and jump on trains from which people get killed. Women could be raped or murdered in the process. It would just be such a lark to try to break into another country because, hey, how about because they're scared of living where they are? Because where they are isn't safe. And when we talk about refugees, we need to recognize that we need to recognize, sorry, my phone was ringing. We need to recognize that Jesus was also a refugee, and he escaped to Egypt for a little while until it was safe for him to come back. And so I share with you again, we think of him, Jesus, as safe beneath a steeple or cozy in a crib beside the font, but he is with 1 million displaced people on the long road of weariness and want. For even as we sing our final carol, his family is up and on that road, fleeing the wrath of someone else's quarrel, glancing behind and shouldering their load. Whilst Herod rages still from his dark tower, Christ clings to Mary, fingers tightly curled. The lambs are slaughtered by the men of power, and death squads spread their curse across the world. But every Herod dies and comes alone to stand before the Lamb upon the throne. Every tyrant, every person who bullies, every person who tries to eliminate their enemy, eventually finds themselves in that place where we all find themselves, before the Lord, standing with all of what we've done, all of who we have become, standing before Jesus, recognizing that either we come as these wise men from the far east who come bringing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, or we come bearing the blood of others on our hands, or all those things in between. We once and for all stand before this child who was the Lamb, who is God. And we stand before one who is more merciful than we could ever imagine. So whether we have blood on our hands, a curse on our tongues, or heart genuinely trying to help those others who have been forced to flee, we know that in the end, we all come and stand before the Lord. But we have choices to make before we get there. What choices will you make? Will you make the choice to help those who are fleeing, to help them get to a safe place, to find hospitality and food and shelter and love and hope and laughter? Or will you contribute to the pain and suffering they continue to survive through? The call is ours to do the right thing. The call is also ours to help others to do the right thing. When we stand before the Lamb upon the throne, let us all know that we stand there with hearts filled with hope and love and joy and peace, knowing that we did all we could to help every refugee as if they themselves were Jesus, the child, escaping for his life. I know it's sort of a downer, but that's part of Christmas. It's not all the hearts and roses and wonder of a baby swaddled in white clothing. It's also the fact that this child, who was born in a manger because there was no room made for him in the world as it was, has loved us so much that he welcomes us with hearts and love and peace and joy and forgiveness and hope and so much glory that we can never understand or imagine. God bless you. Have a good day, and may you have a blessed Christmas. God bless you.